Hello guys, today we are talking about React use effect. And after today's tutorial, you're going to understand everything that has to do with use effect. So stick around with me to the end and let's dive in. All right guys, so what is use effect? Use effect is a React hook that performs side effect in your components. We can look at it as a side code in your component that runs only when a certain state is being altered or changed. Think of it like you going to a restaurant and you are assigned a waiter just for your table. This waiter does not talk to you or interfere with the meal that you're eating only when you want to pay your bill or you want to place another order. Think of the restaurant as your component while the waiter is the side effect that is told not to talk to you or interfere in anything that you're doing except you want to place an order again or pay your bill. On my screen here, I have a simple application with a variable counter in my use state, where if I click on this button, it increases the counter, and if I click on this other button, it decreases the counter. We are going to import use effect. Then I will explain the structure of how use effect is. From there, we'll build on it using the side code, which will react to this counter here. Let me import use effect from React, and then I will initialize it. The use effect takes in two arguments. One is a callback function and one is a dependency. So for now, I'm just going to put an empty callback function. And then for the dependency, we have three ways of initializing it. Let me quickly paste this here. So if you don't give any dependency, it means your side effect will run on every render of this component. If you give an empty array as dependency, it means the use effect code will run only when this component mounts and would not run again. If you put an array of dependencies, which is putting in values there in the array, it means anytime any of those value changes, this code should run. We'll see in a bit what all this mean. So for now, I'm going to put an empty array there, which means this code, whatever code I put in this callback function, would run only when this component mounts. For now, in our callback function, let's just console.log. Use effect is working. And let me save. So if we go to our browser, inspect, let's check our console. And if I refresh, we see use effect is working. It is printing 2 times on my console because strict mode is on. If you turn off your strict mode, that should print once, but you see it's working now. So even if I increment this count or decrement, it would not run again because I did not add it as a dependency array. I only added an empty array there, which means this code should run, the console.log should run only when the component mounts. So even if I trigger this count change, nothing happens. Let's go and add counter in our dependency array and let's see what happens. Now if I save and refresh, if I click on the button, it shows use effect is working. And that's because I added it here in our dependency array. If I did not add it, it means the console.log should only happen if this component mounts. But now I've added it. Anytime the counter changes, that code should run again. The use effect also has a cleanup function. This cleanup function, if you need to unmount this component, it is always a good practice to have a cleanup function. We didn't use it here because number one, it is optional and there is nothing here that we need to do a cleanup for. But I will show you in a bit what we can use the use effect for that would need a cleanup function. I will go ahead and create a component under here just to demonstrate, called counter. I'll create a state variable called counter and set counter. Okay, let me just copy from here and then I'll take off the use effect from here entirely and bring it down here. But now I don't want to console.log and I don't want this. What do I want? I want to set interval. I want to set interval that would return a function. Set counter. Set counter. Here you return wherever the previous value was. We want to add it plus 1. And then all right, I'm giving it an empty dependency array because I want this use effect code to run immediately the component mounts. And then I'll return a h1 displaying counter. All of this has to go. All of this has to go. Um, the main component here, I want to define a state variable called show and set show. That will be equal to use states of initial value true. And then this button should set show to any initial value. I just want if it was true, I want to make it false. If it was false, I want to make it true. And then for this here, if show is true, then render. I don't want to render an H1 there. Render my counter components. Sorry. Just for good naming, I would call this timer instead of counter. I'll call this timer, set timer. I'll call this timer. Mm, I'll call this toggle. Why am I seeing an error here? Okay, I need a bracket. I need an open bracket here. All right. So now if I save, my timer is counting. It looks like there is no bug. If I click on the toggle and toggle back, it counts back from 0. It's as if there is no bug there. But let me add a console here. Let me add a console.log and let's add tick. Save again, refresh. My console has printed tick. See what happens. Let me toggle the timer. Console is still ticking. Toggle back. My timer is now 0, but my console is still ticking. This is 38, 42, 46. You see the lag. You see the issues. It will lead to memory loss. It will lead to a very huge bug. Your application might even crash down. Toggle again. My counter is still counting in my console. Toggle again. But here it's showing as if everything is fine. And now let me refresh again. So I started ticking 6, 8, 10. Let's toggle and let's toggle again. See what is happening. in my console. So there is a whole lot of bugs in this code right now. Let's fix it. Instead of calling the set interval direct in our use effect, let's store it in a variable named id. And here is where our cleanup code comes, where we say return, use the return keyword, and then what do we want to return? A cleanup function that will clear interval id and we'll pass in our id. Okay. And then after that, let's just console here the log. Sorry, console the log id cleared. So if I save now and go back to my code, refresh, it starts tick, tick, tick. And if I toggle, you see the cleanup function has returned a clear interval passing in the ID so that our application would not have any bug. If I toggle again, interval cleared, started again, tick 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. If I toggle again, it will be cleared. Once the component unmounts, the cleanup function will be called to avoid any bugs in our code. So that's what the cleanup function does. Alright guys, that's it for this tutorial on React use effects. So just to recap, React use effect is a hook in React that tells React to run a particular code, a side code, when a component re-renders or when it mounts or when a state of a value changes. It takes into parameters a callback function and a dependency array. So I'll see you next time. Make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any tutorials I drop. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time.